Okay, as I promised, we're going to try to do some more content on a more regular basis. So that means Freedom Fridays can only be on Fridays, so I'm not sure what to call Wednesdays. But turns out that I actually have some time to kill out here, like George was singing, still killing time, waiting for President Biden to stop wrecking ball the entire nation and pretty much the modernized world for that part, because so much of what goes on in the world relies on what happens here in the greatest nation on the face of the planet, the United States of America. So I'm sitting out here. I've got my co-host down over here. He's hanging out with me, killing some time as well. And I thought a good subject to talk about today is the legalized and slow acclimated considerations allowing widespread abuse of children in our nation. The most precious among us are those that aren't strong enough to defend themselves, that haven't developed their own thought processes to the point where they can make adult decisions, because they're certainly not adults. We're talking about small children, adolescents, prepubescents, and really anybody under the age of 18, and you might as go as far as to say under the age of 21. There's a reason why rental cars won't rent vehicles to anybody less than 25. It's because we're still maturing, we're still growing. Our mind is not completely set in its best state of judgment until you get to some of those years. So what are you talking about with child abuse? Well, I'm talking about the widespread acceptance of changing genders, of doing mastectomies on prepubescent girls, doing hormone therapies for girls and boys that decide that they want to be boys and girls. And in many of the cases, the government is paying for this stuff, which is another problem all by itself, but a much smaller problem. And we're starting to run into this slippery slope where just recently California passed, or they are certainly in the process of passing, a bill that physicians who have spent time in a medical school, who have spent time studying medicine, practicing medicine, and many of whom are now out on their own after doing a long internship with another medical facility before they open their own practice. If you're a doctor in California and you give recommendations and advice for COVID shots, that the government, not the medical association, not other doctors, but that the government deems to be misguided COVID information or misinformation, the state of California is now going to come after you for your license. So why does that tie into this? Well, in and of itself, it's completely ugly. The government has no business telling medical professionals what the narrative should be for any given treatment. But it's scary because they are completely unhesitant to go after these doctors and let them know that, hey, if you say something that we don't agree with, that the state doesn't agree with, we will take your livelihood, we'll take your medical license, and you will lose everything. Now, of course, they can move on to other states, and to any doctors that are in the great state of California, or anyone for that matter, I would say join the bandwagon and start fleeing towards either red states or purple states, so we can make some of these swing states strongly in the red, and so they're no longer swing states, because California, at this stage in the game, California is unsalvageable. Places like New York are unsalvageable. So take that to the next level, where you have children's hospitals and some of these quacks that are working inside of children's hospitals that are recommending early stage hormone therapy. They're doing plastic surgeries where they're actually changing genitalia from one to another. They're doing mastectomies on girls as young as 12, 13 years old. These are lifelong decisions that are going to have huge psychological and physiological ramifications on that child's life for the rest of their life. And they are things that can't be undone. In one particular case, there was a mother and a father, and from what I gather, they are divorced or no longer living together, and there's some sort of custody agreement that went on there. Well, the child decided that he or she wanted to be the opposite sex, and there was actually a district court judge. I wish I had more details pulled up for you, but I kind of did this a little bit on the fly. There's a district court judge that ordered the husband to stand down, who was against this procedure, this therapy, and now you've got a husband, or certainly a father, who has no say in what happens to his child, as the child's genital status is completely mutilated. I don't know how much more of an empty feeling you could possibly have in life than being ordered by a court of law that you have to stand down and be quiet and stay in your lane about your own child's sexuality and genitalia configuration that they were born with. I hope that that's something that I would never have to be in that position for, but as that father, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? He's fought it. He's taken it to court. The court's deemed that apparently it is reasonable for this abusive mother to go out and proceed with something that is going to be life-changing, life-damaging. Another topic that kind of spins off the children is, as parents saw what was going on with their school's curriculum for their children, which they were given a front and center role during COVID, where children were remote learning, and they started seeing some of the curriculum that was being passed down, some of the books that were available for their children to read, being assigned to read, maybe falling short of pornographic. They were things that kids don't need to read. Kids aren't even capable of understanding their sexuality, certainly in elementary school, probably into middle school, for a lot high school, and then some years beyond that. So some of these books, parents got angry, and rightly so. Some of these books got pulled, and of course you had the Biden administration teaming up with the teachers union to write a letter to the Department of Justice that any of these parents that are angered by any of this stuff, well, we're going to start an open-ended investigation into you by the Department of Justice, the FBI, and we're going to consider you domestic terrorists. And regardless if you prove that otherwise, you are going to be categorized as a domestic terrorist. So then the next thing that the libs come out and they pull the playbook with is, well, this is book burning and taking these stuffs out of the library. This is absolutely book burning. This is something that the Nazi, other fascist regimes did. Okay, well, let's, at what point in time do we cross that delineation between having a cycle of going through and reviewing material that would be suitable for small children and teenagers, and not, and what do we call book burning, and what do we call good parenting and good educating? Are we going to say that anything that you censor or remove from your child's view is book burning? Well, let's take a serious look at that. Are we gonna start stalking hardcore pornography media in school libraries, or maybe we only start in middle school where they can check this stuff out, or high school? This whole thing that people coin up in a meme of saying, in history, the only people that burned books turned out to be the bad guys. Well, let's not use such a broad brush and pull out a cliche like that, because it makes no sense. There's no direct correlation from one to the other. Certainly not as it relates to children in the public education system. This is something that, as the midterms come up, I hope it gets you motivated to go out and vote. Get out and vote conservative. Some of these smaller elections with school boards and county commissioners and city councils, they are very important. They're very important to keep us going in the right direction. And if you don't get out and vote, well, the ramifications of some of these things, you might as well have dirt under your fingernails because you were complicit in it. So we need to get out, we need to make some changes, and we need to start standing up against this woke culture that idly stands by and so far as saying, well, we're not going to call pedophiles anymore. We're going to call them minor attracted persons. Give me a break. Are we going to take that to the extent of rapists as being non-consensual encounter attracted persons, and they're just doing their thing that they were pre-programmed to do, I guess. It's absolutely foolish. But anyway, we'll close this out. I'm trying to keep these under 10 minutes because I know the longer you go, the less views you get on it. Certainly with my ability to cover content is not the best yet. I'm getting a little bit better, but I would like to say one thing. If you enjoy these, share them with your friends. I've got if you're picking it up off Facebook, I've got a Facebook page that's an open page anybody can post on. The Conservative American. If you like the YouTube content, share the YouTube content. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. Like it if you like the material. And the reason I say that is because I've actually had a lot of people very recently come out and say, hey, I watched this, and I know several other people that actually, they mentioned to me, in passing, that Freedom Friday series didn't come out, and I like watching those. I like listening to the dissection of some of these political situations. So if you fall into that category, help me build the channel up. Doesn't cost you anything. I'm certainly at this level, I'm not making anything, but it'll help broaden the audience participation, and more people are going to see it. And that's really what I'm after here. I have no intention of making a YouTube channel or becoming a professional commentator, because I don't have that skill level. But I'm a normal Joe. I'm a blue-collar worker. I can relate to the average Americans instead of these out-of-touch politicians that have more money than brains. So help spread the channel and support it that way if you feel like doing so, and I would appreciate it. And we will catch you on the next one. We'll try to dig up some more material and keep these coming.